And welcome back to South Texas Crossfire, KTMB. This is Attorney Joe Flores, and reminding you to watch us each and every night right here on KTMB Time Warner plus YouTube. And also, we are now going to be in Houston here pretty quick, I hear. So we're going to be getting out the word. But as you all know, I've been a federal and a state practitioner of law. And there is one thing that I'm very passionate about, not just caring for people as a nurse practitioner, but as a lawyer. And I've advocated for their medical rights. And I'm going to have some people on that are really going to show you why it's important. Many of you all say, well, they broke the law and now they're going to have to face it. But nobody deserves to die from a lack of medical treatment inside a prison facility. And that's happening more than you think. They're undertreated, underdiagnosed, and there's a real problem going on in there. If they're in real pain, they'd be lucky to get a Tylenol. So I'm bringing on Bob Gardner and my good friend Linda Pugh. It's kind of hard to navigate around here in Corpus, but they made it, and I'm so glad they did. So welcome, guys. How are you?
Oh, doing fine.
It's good to see you, Linda. You look great.
Well, thank you very much.
And Bob, I just met you, but you're also part of the movement, because I know that we house 25% of all the prisoners in the world, and we give 3 times as long sentences as England, Britain, the Great Britain, and France and Switzerland.
Yeah, I've kind of been at it a couple of years, and it's been quite an eye-opener for me.
Well, Linda, let's start out with you first. It's been a snapshot back 2-3 years. You started your nonprofit. What's it called?
The Inmate Assistance League.
And I want people, we're going to put it on the lower third. If people would like to donate, any amount of money would help. What is that number for the 501c3 company you have?
6804 E, Highway 6 South, Suite 202, Houston, Texas 77083.
All right. Well, thank you for that, Linda. And I'd like people out there to mark that number. Dave's going to put it up on the lower third of your screen. It's going to be appearing about every half a minute to a minute, and it's important because most of us have, if it doesn't have a family member, somebody close to us that has been in the system. There's a lot of lack of mercy in that system, and we're going to get to that in a minute. Let's give a little background. First with you, Linda, you started out with your husband. What was his name?
Donald Pugh.
And now Donald was incarcerated, and he was diagnosed with cancer?
Yes, but not until he was stage 4. And if he had been diagnosed earlier, he would have had a 95% chance of survival. But as it was, he couldn't see a doctor until he was stage 4, and he had no chance of survival.
Why do you think they delayed the treatment so much?
Well, it's an HMO that they operate under for insuring inmates. And when the unit doctor refers people to Galveston to a specialist, and they see them, they have to pay the full amount out of one pot of money. And that pot of money also provides bonuses for the doctors. And the more money they spend, the less their bonus is. Unfortunately, is the way that it is set up.
So the system's set up for the less treatment, more bonus.
That's right.
How did that make you feel that motivated you to start this organization?
It made me know how hopeless and helpless other families feel. And I thought that I would try to do something about it. I'm just one voice, but if I can get other people to speak out, and they're so afraid to speak out, because they're afraid their loved one will be retaliated against. But if they're going to retaliate, they're going to retaliate anyhow. It doesn't matter what you do. So why not speak up and try to save someone else if you can't save yourself? And
I want to try to share that with you, some of the ways that you can speak out, writing to the warden, but also writing to your representatives. Isn't that correct? Handwritten letters?
You can write. It's hard to find your way around inside the TDCJ system, But you do learn who's in charge of what, and then you go up the ladder. And myself, I like to start at the top
There you go.
because it's a waste of time to start at the bottom.
Well, and amen to that. And that's why it's so important that we have that nonprofit that you started, because it gives people some guidance along with Prison Talk, the radio show. And we're going to get to talk to Mr. Gardner here in a second. But is there an email that somebody can just reach out to you on their phone for? Because that was a kind of long address. But is there an email that somebody can email you at if they have a loved one and they're concerned in prison, and maybe they can try to donate at least some, things cost money to keep the lights on. If you have somebody in prison and you can write a little bit of a donation, or you know somebody who can, what email is it that they can get in touch with you on?
It's kind of long too, but it's JAMESETTAPUGH @sbcglobal.net.
And that's James, ETTAPUGH, @sbcglobal.net.
Yes.
And we will have that up on your screen as well. And just promise me you'll write them all down for Dave before we pack it up.
I certainly
Okay.
will.
Mr. Gardner, I want to make sure that I'm clear here. You have been involved at least the last couple of years.
Yes.
And it's, Mr. Gardner, your first name?
Robert.
And why did you get involved in trying to help prisoners in the Texas system?
Well, I've been involved with KPFT Radio in Houston. It's a listener-sponsored, publicly funded radio station, and it's on the web at kpft.org. You can tune in live and access archives. And we have a prison show on Friday nights that was, as you know, founded by Ray Hill about 30 years ago. It's been on the air that long. I got to know Ray through various kinds of activism. He didn't limit himself only to prison issues.
Right.
And I occasionally would visit the prison show. He retired from it a couple of years ago, and things, as when you hand off things that change sometimes is a little rocky, and so I started hanging around to try to help that and smooth that and keep it flowing.
Yes, sir.
And one of the hosts was very solicitous of mail, and she was getting 40 letters a week. And she was very involved with some other things in her life, and I became kind of alarmed that those prisoners were reaching out to the station and to the show and offered to help her with those. And I also met Linda and Karen D'Amico, who was a partner of hers in the Inmate Assistance League.
Hi, Karen.
Haven't
seen you in a while.
Would come to the show, and then their particular avenue was inmate medical issues. So I've gotten to know about that. I've got probably an inventory of maybe 80 prisoners I've written to in the last couple of years. And medical issues have risen to the top in terms of their prominence, because there's nothing more important than a person's human rights and their civil rights and their health. And many inmates are not young, and as I know, being 66 years old, health issues become more and more common and frequent.
Let me ask you this: if people, just like with Ms. Pugh, you're another voice, a very important voice there. If people want and need help, and you've probably learned how to navigate the system yourself.
Somewhat. I am learning, and I'm gaining in confidence and understanding, and with those things. But as an alternative, and I thought you were perhaps going there, they can write the station. I get mail there. Linda has occasionally gotten mail there, and it's a very simple place to have mail delivered. And that's KPFT 90.1 FM. It's 419 Lovett, Lovett, and the zip, Houston, Texas, 77006, and you can make it to the attention of Robert Gartner or Linda Pugh, and that mail will be
And
delivered.
that's G-A-R-T?
T-N-E-R, yes.
N-E-R, G-A-R-T-N-E-R,
Yes.
Robert Gardner.
Uh-huh.
And we'll get that information down for Dave, and we'll
Okay.
put that down in our lower third.
Mhm.
I've had the occasion to also join in on the conversations when they're instituting the death penalty on those, the death penalty panels.
That is a frequent subject with the prison show, yes.
So I have appeared from time to time, and then on KPFT with Ray on the television show, I have. But I just wanted to share with everybody out there. I practiced in the federal system for more than a decade, and a decade and a half in the state system. And time again, there were medical issues, as Mr. Gardner said, that rise to the top. From broken shoulders and being forced to sleep on a top bunk, to older men with prostatitis that couldn't even urinate, to people with appendix rupturing, to undiagnosed heart attacks, to my good friend, childhood friend Mario Garcia, who died from massive convulsions because he didn't get his medication. These are very real cases, and these are only a handful of an example of that happens everywhere, every place. And where they build a small town, builds a Walmart, they build a prison. And so we have to advocate for these people's rights. Why? Because one in about, I think, 100 are either on supervised parole on paper, as they say, or in prison in America. So we house more people, land of the free, and incarcerates more people than ever. Going back to you, Ms. Pugh, the audience out there is probably wondering, what gains have you done with the legislature, politics? Are we making some noise? Are we getting some things done on the contracts with and the HMOs and with Galveston? UT has a big contract. UT and what sort of inroads are we making on this?
Well, Dr. Lynette Linthicum, who is the director of medical for TDCJ, and Dr. Owen Murray, that is the director for the health care with UTMB. I meet with them, and Karen does also, and we take along other people.
Mm-hmm.
And Bob has even been there with us, and we meet with them quarterly. And we have seen a change in treating diabetes. And they used to not do a blood glucose level before they injected insulin, but now they have incorporated that into their system. And diabetes kills a lot of inmates because, as you know, Joe, you have to know what your blood glucose is before you take insulin, or you're playing Russian roulette.
And we don't know if they're going to get a breakfast, then they give them their insulin, and then it bottoms out,
That's right.
and they can get into a coma.
That's right.
I have a good friend of mine that I wanted to let y'all know about, Nestor Perderio. He's a doctor, psychiatric doctor. Some of the undiagnosed things involve psychiatric care, which we can't ignore either, and he's doing telemedicine. And I wanted to let y'all know on this program, we hadn't seen each other in years. I missed you. And we just did each other by communication by email. Mm-hmm. And it's harder than Chinese arithmetic to find my office anyway. So I'm glad
I'll
you
agree
did.
with that.
Yeah. So now you know where it is, you know,
Right.
by the subway, you know, I got to park by where there's food, you know. But anyway, I have this idea, and I talked with some telemedicine fellas that own a one-stop shop, a blood pressure and a blood glucose machine. And I want y'all to reach out to them, and they're Taiwanese, and they're willing to give them at a very good cost, and I would be willing to purchase some if I could get some. If the prison would give us a contract, we could get those out there to monitor the blood sugar. You wouldn't have to have a nurse go in there, you know, but the record would reflect, it would show when they took their blood sugar or not, and we would make sure their blood sugar got taken. I challenge Dr. Linthicum, and I want to go to the next meeting y'all have.
Well,
I want to talk to her about it.
We're having one the 23rd day of June.
I want to be there, and if I can't be there by that, I'll be there by phone call, Skype. She can see my ugly mug, and I'll talk to her about it. Because telemedicine, is one way to save money, and the state's always about that, but we can monitor their blood sugar and their blood pressure, and those two things, stroke and heart attack, go hand in hand, plus the blood sugar.
Absolutely.
Some of these letters that you're writing, Robert, what kind of letters are you responding to? What are you hearing besides the medical? I know that there's violence in prison, there's fear, it's a jungle.
Well, you were talking about diabetes, and some of those letters reflect security concerns, and if it's late at night, there seems to be impediments to the infirmaries are closed. A diabetic has an issue. I have a friend of 2 years who suddenly drops. His blood sugar has gone down to I think 28 once. Shocking. And
anything less than 40 is just immediately
can't get
life-threatening.
access. There's some inmates who have ideas for change, and that sounds like a very interesting one that you brought up. I got a letter from Bill Sims just yesterday, and he had communicated with John Whitmire, and actually got they communicated a bit, and he claims credit for some issues that were instituted to try to streamline some process. I'm not sure I remember exactly quite which one, but there are issues with the logistical aspects related to medical care. Wheelchair issues. It's said that there's a retired person who does all the wheelchair repairs, and a number of complaints who come from inmates who don't know each other. That's been an issue for me. I guess I'm maybe going off on a bit of a tangent here.
No, you're not.
When you don't know an inmate, you haven't gotten to know them, you hear all these stories about people being manipulative.
Sure.
You don't know whether you're being fed a line or they're just angry at someone. So, and then you risk your reputation or the good you're trying to do with going to someone as Miss Linthicum or Murray or Myra Walker, who is kind of their front person with a concern, and with my growing experience, I feel like I'm becoming more competent to feel like, and then with the host of issues, you've got plenty to do. So it concerns me that those with lesser issues are falling off the map in that regard. One guy's in a wheelchair, and he said a book hit him in the head in the law library, and the law librarian told him he wasn't going to file a grievance over that. That concerns me, even though it seems like a small thing. It is large with respect to the disrespect that he experienced with that, if indeed that happened that way. So,
and it's always their word against until you see the objective. On the medical, that's why I get passionate about, is on the medical side, you can get their medical records and you can see, and that's why I'm trying to get across to the prison system and beginning to reach out, is say, if you had a telemedicine device that automatically took their blood sugar and blood pressure, there's no line. It doesn't lie. It'll be up on a cloud. And if a doctor can't get there, or a nurse practitioner, they can open up their phone, and they can open it up and see every inmate's blood pressure in an encrypted, fashion, HIPAA compliant, and they could see Mr. Garza, inmate Garza's blood pressure is this. Mr. Wright's blood sugar is this, et cetera, for examples. And things could be done in a timely manner. The things that concern me are like when your husband's diagnosis of cancer, those things could have been caught with a simple laboratory test, even if they didn't have a specialist. And when a stage 4 developed, that's very concerning to me. And that's, Mr. Webster out in Houston, not real nice country guy from Ennis, Texas originally. He's a very good attorney. He wanted to talk to you about that because he said, this is a nationwide epidemic. After I talked to him, he's a very good lawyer, and I said, prisoner rights is a big deal in America, not just here in Texas. And I think that it takes an army to fight this, and you need champions that are in the law, you
Yes.
know. And a lot of lawyers would say, well, because of the underlying offense they did, it's going to be hard for a jury to look beyond that. But clever and smart and intelligent lawyers can look beyond that and say it doesn't matter what somebody did. The thing is, there has to be a standard of care. Why do they have good doctors like Dr. Lithicum and nurse practitioners and others if they're not going to use them? Then why give good care at all, or try to?
Yes, and another thing that I don't understand, once they are sent to Galveston to see a specialist and his recommendation goes back to the unit, that unit doctor does not have to follow those recommendations. He can follow his own and ignore what the specialist said.
And ignore the consultation of a specialist and refuse to treat like the specialist wants.
Yes, that is correct.
And they're looking at cost, once again, the HMO.
Yes.
And you have documentation that reflects that the HMO incentive is to save money and not provide that care.
Yes, I do. It's on the website, but you really have to dig.
Where is that
is.
website so people can dig?
It's under the state of Texas criminal justice system, but it's buried down in a department I can't even remember now, but I do have it written down where you can get the salaries, which are, some of them are exorbitant.
If you could post that, do you have a website or a Facebook page that we
Yes.
can post on? Where is that?
Don't have a Facebook page. I have one, but I haven't used it. But just on my email. And,
Yes. You can respond to somebody, and that's the James ETTA PUGH at sbcglobal.net.
Yes.
That they can send that to you and ask for those stats, and maybe you can have them and respond to them.
Yes.
I would encourage everybody that has somebody that's incarcerated to get in touch with KPFT in Houston.
KTFT, yes.
In Houston, and write to them.
Ray used to call it Keep Prison Families Together.
Keep
It's
prison families together.
a good acronym.
Yeah, and he did that prison show for a long time. I got involved with Ray in 2004 when I first met him. I went to a seminar that he had in Houston, and I could tell how much this issue is important because there was only 9 of us at the seminar, but there was 9 strong. I'd never
Right.
been to a smaller seminar, you know. And I said, where are all the lawyers? Where are all the nurse practitioners? Where are all the doctors here? And that's why I said I have been a real pain in the butt to the Southern District federal judges, the marshals, and I know they do the very best they can, but there's a disconnect when they have the federal prisoners. That's where I mainly did my thing, by threatening to pull the contracts, and the marshals pulling out of there if they're not going to give good care to the people that are there. So I really rang that bell, and the federal judges have it all wrong. I'll tell you that. I've heard federal judges say, oh, when they go to the Federal Bureau of Prisons, they're going to get the best care. Y'all's experience, is that true?
Yes.
They're going to get the best care?
They are not going to get the best care.
So that's
but
a no.
It's true. Yeah, it's true that you hear that.
You hear that.
Well, I've had no experience with Fed, but at the state level, consciousness is critical, and people need to, I think, separate. I grew up with all those ideas, well, you're a convict, you go to jail, forget about people. And, and some prisoners ask me, well, why do you write to me? I don't have to decide what they did or how I feel about it even. And there's, but consciousness is needed. And there may be corruption, there may be, underhanded or reasons for things being the way they are, but consciousness needs a lift. And Linda's organization needs help. She needs people to actually do work. And funds are always good. And of course, you can hire people to work with funds, but the level of consciousness will help, I think, minimize and reduce the things that require litigation.
Well, and our president was probably the first one to ever go to a federal prison a couple of months ago, and I'd like to think that Ray and people like you all helped push him in that direction, because the mandatory sentencing guidelines in federal prison are cruel. The difference between rock and powder cocaine is 10 to 1
They are.
at least.
Yes.
And some of these sentences that young boys and girls are getting in prison under 25, we all done crazy things.
Yeah.
And then they're sentenced to life without the possibility of parole.
Yeah.
And it's not making sense, because as they grow older, there needs to be compassionate medical release.
Yeah, and all the while the parole board is accepting new policies where they can give longer set-offs now, so that they don't have to review these people. It used to be like 2 years or 3 years, and then it went to 5 years, and it just keeps going up. And so they get set off for longer periods of time.
Yeah, I'm learning some things about that. There's a whole realm there too. And with that, I want to say that, they kept Linda's husband in jail, in prison until the bitter end. And we know a couple of other people that we feel, should be released to go to their families when they're terminally ill and have those issues. And
Karen's husband also died in prison, and he was terminally ill, and he was not diagnosed with cancer until he was stage 4, and he died in an infirmary bed with ants crawling over his body.
It's just terrible to hear these things that actually happen.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it has to do with politicians, because when they want elected, they always get tough on crime. And one of the propaganda things that they use is that, well, I can't afford to send my child to college, but we send prisoners to college. Well, prisoners get an education just like anyone else if they have family and friends that want to pay for it, but there is no free lunch, and someone does pay for them to go to college. It is not a gift from the state. And even when they get a VOTEC school, if they are paroled, they have a parole fee to pay, and they have a fee to pay on the VOTEC school.
Right.
And if they miss a payment on that VOTEC, back to prison they go.
Well, we've got a minute or so left, and I just want to say that I'm glad that we got this on tape, because it's a lot more powerful sometimes than just letters, because I'm going to shoot this out on my Facebook account. Let's revive your Facebook, and I'll help out with that. And let's just plan right here on TV to keep in touch. And I hope I can stop by KPFT. I'll be going to Houston.
You're very welcome.
I'd love to come out on the prison show, or if not by phone, and just be a regular spot on there, because I know how to beat that drum. And ladies and gentlemen out there, I want you to do something for me. All the politicians, they have, if you go to peopleoverprofits.org, that's peopleoverprofits.org, you can find out who your representative is, state and federal, and handwrite the letter. Don't just type it and email it. Those go in, garbage out kind of deal with the computers. If you handwrite a letter, it gets a lot more attention with these politicians. I want you to flood them with letters, because a lot of you all out there have people that have made a mistake, family members, and the devastation that it has on the children, the devastation that it has on the widows, the devastation it has on friends and people that want to help. That's very important. So I want to take a chance to salute Robert Gardner from KPFT and Linda Pugh and her organization. And remember, James, ETTA, Pugh, P-U-G-H, at sbcglobal.net. And we'll have all that information on there, and the information to write Robert at the KPFT studios, Keeping Families Together, as Ray Hill, my good friend, used to say. He's still around and kicking, so keep fighting, Ray. And we're going to post this up on YouTube in a few days, and we'll be emailing and shoot it out to Linda, and we'll get your email too, Mr. Gardner. Any last words? Mr. Gardner, anything to say out there in TV land?
Well, you know, we have Andy Kahn in Houston, who's a victims' rights advocate, and that's fine. Victims do deserve all the respect, but prisoners still need to be respected, and as you were just saying, their families, their friends. It's a devastating thing to have this issue come up, and medical issues. There are other issues in prison that are related. They need attention. They need people's attention, and we can't just ignore people when they go to prison.
Well said. And Miss Pugh, we're going to keep fighting for the memory of your husband and in the memory of Karen's husband. We're going to keep moving forward, moving the ball forward. And I'm glad that you all came by.
I appreciate it very much.
Yeah.
And for every paid employee, I had rather have someone with the passion and the fire in their soul. That's what we need, for them to contact people making these laws and get them repealed and get some in place that we can live with.
And I want everybody out there to know we're going to keep fighting, and we're going to go ahead and keep doing it. I challenge people out there that are prison doctors, and our friend Supermax, Maximiliano Herrera, an ex-prison doctor, he's going to come on and he's going to tell people about those conditions where he had to wrestle between trying to get somebody, a specialist, and give something stronger than Tylenol. And I'm also asking these prison system healthcare providers to not put profits over people. If you want to save money, use telemedicine. That way you can monitor at least their blood sugar, blood pressure, and also follow up. You may beg to differ, but I've seen it from the lawyer side and the healthcare practitioner side that they're not getting enough care. And whether you feel, however you feel about what those people have done, you, the taxpayer out there, end up paying if preventative medicine is not given to these prisoners. We're out of time. Thank you, and God bless.